Hi, welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some ideas that I've come up with for putting together or laying out the design of my Bountiful Baskets block. I made it using the disappearing pinwheel block. That is where you actually sew together a black and a print, or a print and a plain, 10-inch square. You sew them all the way around. You cut them on the diagonal. You sew them back together in a pinwheel. Then you cut this pinwheel into 9 patches, and then you have fun playing with those 9 patches and putting it back together in a fashion that you'd like. I did a YouTube video about a week and a half ago, and I'll link that below. It shows you a number of different ideas that you can use. I have been getting emails from a number of quilters who have put together, they've used this disappearing pinwheel, they've put together some quilts, and I wanted to share with you some ideas on how you could lay out your disappearing quilt block if you're putting this together. As I mentioned, there are, I think in that video, I ended up with, I think over 16 different ways you could lay out the 9 patches from this. I've chosen to put mine together like this, with the pinwheel out here in the corner. It originally would have been in the center. I moved it out to the side. When I'm finished with this ideas on the design, I'm going to give you an overview of how this block goes together. So stick around, you'll see exactly how that's done as well. I'm referring to this little pinwheel here as the flowers in the basket. So it turned into a basket, and I'm referring to these as the flowers. So now let's take a look at what I've put on the wall here. The first thing that I did was I made 4 of these in the center, and I've actually sewn these 4 together, and I've put all the flowers together so they come together in a point in the center of the quilt. And then it's got a beautiful dark outline. It kind of looks like some blocks within a shoe fly block here, if you will. Then what I've done is I've placed a number of the blocks all the way around, and I have lined up the flowers in groups of 2, as you can see here, around the quilt. And so they have all been placed, and they're all just laying on the design wall here. They are not sewn together. These 4 are sewn together, but the rest are not. Then I started with another row all the way around, and I'm just lining up the flowers in these baskets together. And I do need to place another row all the way across, but I've run out of design wall right now, so I'll be finishing that up there. But take note of how this is going together with these beautiful black outlines that you see. And I believe this is probably the layout that I'm going to use when I do sew this together. But I do want to share with you some other ideas on how you could maybe use this same block if you choose. And let's see what you can do to put it together. All right, so you see I've removed the loose blocks, and I'm going to place them back on the wall. This is the 4-patch that I did actually sew together, so it's staying together as a 4-patch. I moved it to the side. I'm going to now start laying some blocks out, and I think I'm going to just repeat this 4-patch unit here. And let's take a look at how that looks. I am putting this on batting. I've just pinned some batting to a quilt here on my wall here. So that's what I'm pinning this onto. So let's take a look at what we come up with. So here's another design. I like this one as well. I love the black outline that's created up. Again, I've taken all of the flowers of the basket and put them in the center of each of these 4-patch units. This is a wonderful design. It's something that I could possibly use, although I think I'm still going to follow the same design layout that I had pictured first. And what I do, and I do recommend, is you take a picture of every layout that you come up with. And then as you're going through your photos, you can identify which one you really like the best. It also helps you to reconstruct that same layout if it's the one that you decide you want to go for. So I love it. I think it's kind of fun. Now I'm going to play around. I'm going to take off the 4-patch that's sewn together, And I'm going to do something different with some more of these loose blocks, and I'm going to lay them out completely different without having their points together. Let's see what happens. So as you can see from what I have done here, I've basically reconstructed the same quilt or the same layout as I did earlier. So instead of here is the center part that we had done before. And what I had constructed here were 4 patches on each side with the center or the base of the basket coming together. But once you put 4 of them together, you end up with that same beautiful block design that we had seen in the previous layout. I love it. It's just a fun one. So the very first layout that I had done probably is still going to be the one I'm going to go with because it's basically encircling the 4 patch in the center. And this is just a repetition of the 4 blocks as it works its way across the quilt. So what you could do with this disappearing block is just maybe lay it in rows with a flower up in one corner. You could sash each and every block if you wanted to. But I think if you use the blocks as they are and just kind of keep twisting and turning them, ultimately you're going to end up with a design very similar to this layout. And they're beautiful. I'd love to see what you come up with. I've had some of my subscribers go out to my Facebook page and post pictures of their quilts using this disappearing pinwheel block, and I'd love to see yours. So I've got links below. Make sure you go out there and post photos for all of us to be able to be inspired by the quilts that you also create. Now let's go to the tabletop, and I'm going to share with you how to put that disappearing block together to create this basket. So to make your disappearing pinwheel block, you're going to need some solid squares or light squares or dark squares. I've used a black as my solid, and then I've used a print. It's a layer cake of prints. You could certainly use your scrap stash if you cut up 10-inch squares, which I do. You can use your 10-inch squares. And you're simply going to place your the dark or the light, whichever you choose to use, against your print, right sides together, and you are going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, so the whole thing is enclosed. Then you're going to take your ruler and you're going to cut diagonally across the square each way. Once you've done that, and let me lay this here so you'll see what you'll end up with. All right, so here was that 10-inch square, the black sewn to the light right sides together, and then I cut diagonally across, and you end up with 4 half square triangles. And then what you're going to do is put it together in a pinwheel fashion, which you see right there. So there's the pinwheel, and then you're going to sew it together to obtain this. Here's one that's been finished. Then you're going to measure how wide and tall your square is. Mine are 12 3/4. You divide that by 3 and you should get 4 1/8. Or excuse me, 4 1/4. Excuse me, 4 1/4. And then dividing that by 2 is 2 1/8. So I took my ruler and I laid this center line here, the 2 1/8 inch line, on the seam line and cut here, moved it over there to the 2 1/8 inch line, lining it up on that center seam line, cut there. I did the same here, lined it up 2 1/8 away from the center line, cut there. And the last cut is right here. I've lined it up 2 1/8 inch, lined up on that center seam line, and I cut here. When you cut a disappearing block, it's best to have a rotating mat if you have one that's large enough. I don't have a rotating mat that's this large. My rotating mat is too small. So I have placed mine on this green mat, which will allow me to move it so that I won't be moving the squares as I cut them. So again, I need to cut mine at 2 1/8 of an inch from this center line here, from the center seam line. So I'm lining up the 2 1/8 inch mark with that center, and I will cut here. Then I will line up that 2 1/8 inch mark away from that center line there. I'm going to cut there, and being very careful not to move the pieces. I'm turning, going to turn again. Line up my ruler 2 1/8 inch away from the center line, and cut. And then the last one, 2 1/8 of an inch away from the center line, and cut. There we go. So now, as you can see, I have a 9 patch right there. And what I did to create my basket, you can see the pinwheel was in the center. I moved it to the corner, and then I took all of these corner blocks and turned them there. I took the long blocks that had the rectangular black and red here and flipped them, and I have constructed the basket. So the pinwheel is up here. These are 3 of the corner half square triangles. This is the 4th half square triangle. And note how I've placed them. Whoops, actually, I didn't place that correctly. There we go. That's how I created my basket right there. So these 3 are like this. This is the one that flips this direction. So pay attention. It's very easy to turn something and flip them around. And here are the side sections of the basket. And then you sew it together and then square it up. That's how each of my Bountiful baskets was put together. I hope something that I've shared with you today will inspire you to grab your scraps, grab a layer cake, and get to work on creating your own beautiful disappearing pinwheel block. I'd love to see what you come up with. Make sure you share it with everyone. Thanks so much for doing that. Thanks again for stopping by and watching my videos. If you do like the content that I provide, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. All of that does really help my channel to get out there and to grow, and it helps my channel to get to other quilters just like yourself. And don't forget to stop by this weekend. Saturday, September 21st is the Jelly Roll Saturday, and I have some fun projects in store. So I look forward to seeing you this weekend. Until then, happy quilting.